Good morning, everyone. So, any doubts, any questions? How are you, all of you? Let me. Fine. Now, we completed this. This topic is over. It's a green. Please, वही बोर्ड निकालो इसमें. Yes, dear. Now, today we are going to start your fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. Okay. So, monetary is over. GDP, national income accounting is over, market mechanism is over, the basic concept that we developed, this part is over, monetary system we completed, planning is over, poverty is over, unemployment is over, clear? So today we are starting your fiscal policy, fine. So fiscal policy, when it's come, the word, it simply means it is the policy of the government. It is a policy of the government, like the monetary policy. Okay, someone is asking, sir, please discuss gender issues in today's unemployment scenario. Okay, so yeah, there is a gender issue is there. So if you take overall in the country, so it's there is some biasness, you can say there is some bias towards the, I mean, just I discussed with you, if you take the even labor force participation rate in the country, you can get different. Like the labor force participation rate of male is more in the country in compared to the women's. Okay, in the women's. So in the so many sectors, still it is a male dominated, but this scenario keeps changing to some extent. Keeps changing in some extent. Their participation rates keeps increasing, and they are getting the better opportunities also. Okay, so scenario is just started improving. Okay, started improving, but still overall you take, and you can measure from the labor force participation rate, then male's labor force participation rate is more than the women's or female, you can say. And in urban and rural area, you can just consider and compare it. Then labor force participation rate for women is more in rural areas in compared to the urban areas, and that credit goes to the agriculture and allied activities like animal husbandry and others. Okay, so yes, you can just relate with that. So what is mean by green GDP? Yeah, green GDP means when you are producing more goods and services, fine. So you are exhausting or you are using the natural resource, and there is a depletions of, there is a decrease in some natural resources, okay, and you are polluting and other things you are there in the economy. So what are the negative externalities is going on in the country, or there is a depletion of the natural resources in the country? You should monetize that. You should monetize that, and that much value, if you subtract from the normal GDP, so that is known as the green GDP. Means you are concerned about the environment, okay, and the other resources. And concept is that that amount what you monetize when you're subtracting, you have to use for preserving the natural resources and the environment. Okay, you have to use this money for that. Like to get the GDP gross and the net, you are subtracting the depreciation, and there is depreciation amount. You are using it for capital, for the maintaining the machines and other things. You are using this, you're buying the new machines and maintaining your capital. Same way, use this money for maintaining all the things. Then there's a green GDP concept is there. SDF is the standing deposit facility interest rate. It's a daily no, it's a interest rate is all interest rate. If you take interest rates are decided, or it's a basically all interest rate is the per annum. Per annum. Interest means it's a per annum. Okay. But how can you calculate? So suppose you take 365 days, 1 year. So some amount interest rate is this much of interest you're paying per annum. Then from per annum, you can bring it for per day. Okay, how much it is calculated for per day. And according to the how many days you are keeping it, okay, the RBI will pay you interest rate on your deposited amount under SDF. But interest rate, what you are reflecting or what you are getting it anywhere, it is per annum. So for 1 year you are calculating, but actually you are calculating 1 year, then you are bringing it for per day, and then per day you are calculating how many days you are keeping, and accordingly the interest rate is going to be paid to you. This way it works. Okay. Clear? Fine. Clear? And if any other questions you are getting, you send me. We'll discuss with you. Fiscal policy is basically the policy of the government, and fiscal policy having two instruments, we can say. One is the government expenditure, and other is known as the government taxes, you can say. Okay, taxes you can say. Later we will modify it, it's a receipt, but here you can say the taxes. So government expenditure is represented by capital G, and taxes is represented by capital T. Clear? Government expenditure is represented by capital G, and taxes is represented by capital T. Fine. Now these two are the instruments of the fiscal policy. So you are knowing that the monetary policy has so many instruments like CRR, SLR, repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, MSF, SDF. These are there. But fiscal policy having two instruments, one is the G and one is the T. Clear? And fiscal policy, remember, directly influence or directly affect the aggregate demand for goods and services in the economy. So how can you relate this? So if you think about aggregate demand, and first you just see, yeah, you write aggregate demand. So remember I have discussed with you aggregate demand equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. You remember this equation, this identity? Okay, we have already discussed in the class. Okay, now just think about it. Consumption C, I have discussed with you. C is your consumption. You are knowing that. We have discussed in your class that consumption C is the function of income. And why we are saying it's your income. Income of the country. Clear? So whenever discussing your GDP, that day we have discussed the output or income you can represent by capital Y. So you assume here Y is the income, so capital consumption is the function of income. And what you are getting? Okay, so here we are going to modify. I think I modified it already with you in the consumption function. When not, then you see that. If it's yes, then just revise it. I discussed with you कि basically here why we are writing, if you modify it, then you could write कि consumption is the function of YD. And YD we are saying, YD means we are writing here disposable income. Disposable income. Disposable income. It is known as YD means disposable income. Fine. YD is known as a disposable income. Fine. Now, YD is what? YD means disposable income means if Y is your income and T amount of taxes you paid. T amount of taxes you paid. So, it is known as a YD, disposable income. So, you can write one line, disposable income, you write income left after the payment of taxes. What is disposable income? Income left after the payment of taxes is known as disposable income. What is that? Disposable income means income left after the payment of taxes is known as disposable income. It's okay to all of you? Okay, why it is known as a disposable income. Now just think the same consumption function, if you are getting this, you are reading the disposable income definitions. So we can write it here, write it, consumption is basically function of YD, disposable income. So you can write consumption is the function of Y minus T. Can we write like this? I think you are knowing the functional representations. This much you are aware about it. So here, what you are getting? If suppose government increasing the T taxes, an increase in T is going to decrease the disposable income. Because again the same concept is here. If YD is going to increase, then consumption is going to increase. If YD is going to fall, then consumption is going to fall. So in true sense, if you modify, then you can say that consumption is the function of disposable income. If suppose we defined it, consumption is the function of income, but you refine it, again you think which income you are talking about here. So sometimes they can ask you consumption is the function of what? So if option is given income, then go for income. If option is given disposable income, then you go for disposable income. Then right answer is the disposable income, not the income. Because you think about it, when you are working anywhere, after you are earning, the first TDS is going to be deducted, and after deduction of TDS, then income is given to you, and that income you are going to use for consumption. That is the reason we are saying consumption is the function of disposable income. Okay, so what you're getting, if T is going to increase, if T increasing, then disposable income is going to fall, because we are assuming if your income remaining same and government is increasing the T, then disposable income is going to fall, and fall in disposable income is going to fall the consumption. So what you're getting, even the taxes of the government If government can increase and decrease the taxes, it is going to change the consumption of the consumer. If government is going to decrease tea, then it is going to increase disposable income and consumption will go up. Because if government is charging you less taxes or cut down the taxes, definitely it is going to increase the disposable income. It is going to increase the disposable income, and increase in disposable income is going to increase the consumption. Clear? Is going to increase the consumptions. Okay, clear to all? Fine. Now come back this point. So now you are writing aggregate demand. So aggregate demand is equal to what? C, and that you can write C is equal to Y minus T plus G, you can write G plus I plus X minus N. I written G, same things, okay, but we modified the consumption function, okay, because consumption depending on the disposable income. Now here you can see the G and T both are included in aggregate demand. T is here and G is here, and these two we considered it is the instruments of Government of India. These two are considered as the instruments of Government of India. Sir, what are examples of institutional and non-institutional medical expenditure taken into account in case of modified reference period? Okay. Institutional medical expenditure means proper way you are visited the doctor, prescribe the medicines, he prescribed the medicine, you're buying it, or proper the hospital system you are following this. If something has happened, then you are going to consulting the doctors, then you are expanding it. That is a proper way. You're in, I mean, that is the example of institutional. Non-institutional means directly you are going to the pharmaceuticals or any pharmacy and you are asking, please give me this medicine, that medicines. You are spending the money, but it is not the institutional one, because what you have to follow, you are not following this. Okay, just you are buying. Officially in the institutional setup, even the pharmacies are restricted to sell medicines, okay, except few medicines. And most of the medicines, I mean, they have to give on the prescription only. But most of the times, we are going to the pharmacy asking, please give me the medicines for this purpose, that purpose. They are giving it, but this type of expenditure comes under the non-institutional health expenditure. So if you take here G and T, these two are the instruments of aggregate demand. But these two instruments are the fiscal policy. These two instruments are there in the aggregate demand, but these two instruments the government that is a fiscal policy. So the fiscal policy you can divide one in expansionary. No, then you understand this first. You understand this. So this one I related, fine. This you understand. Okay, fiscal policies two instrument directly is going to affect your aggregate demand, because these two instruments are there in aggregate demand. One G is here and T is here. Fine. G is here and T is here. Now just one thing, so you have to understand this. What do you mean by government expenditure? So, and what is the primary objective of fiscal policy? So suppose under fiscal policy, here fiscal policy, is here, and ultimate objective is to achieve higher economic growth and development. Higher economic growth and development. Okay, you understand? Higher economic growth and development. Okay, there is a primary objective. Like monetary system we have discussed, monetary policy, the primary objective of monetary authority is controlling inflation. But fiscal policies, primary objective is to achieve the higher economic growth and development. So you come, you just think about it. Okay, how can you achieve? What is the how you can achieve the higher economic growth and development? So basically, you have to develop the agriculture, and allied activities. You developing the industry. You're developing the industry. You're developing the services like education. You can say health. You could just write infrastructure. Anything you can come. Infrastructure, public administrations, defense, etc. Oh, etc. you can write. So basically, if you really want to achieve higher economic growth and development, so you have to develop all the sectors, agriculture, allied activities, industries, education, health, infrastructure, public administrations, defense services, and all this other services sector you have to develop. So if you're a government, you are here, how can you develop these sectors? So you have to make plan, policies, and that you have to implement. So any plan and policy when you're talking about from the government side, so for government plan and policies, what? Finally, you are going to spend the money on that. Suppose you implemented for agriculture development, Pradhan Mantri, the PM, Pradhan Mantri Bima, Fasal Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri, you are Pradhan Mantri Sinchai Yojana, there you are bringing the irrigation facilities. And so any policies you can take, the government is spending money on that. So basically, government has to develop all the sector, this, this one, this one, this, all sectors government has to develop. And developing means what? And then only you are going to achieve the higher economic growth and development. Then only you are going to achieve the higher economic growth and development. Then only. Okay. So government developing this, how they can implement? The government has to implement projects, okay, different projects, the programs, okay, policy. Let's you implement programs and policy, different schemes. You have to implement. And for all this purpose, when you're going to implement, you're spending the money. That is known as the government expenditure. You understand? So when you're saying government expenditure, it does not mean that government is spending the money like throwing the money to the everyone or distributing the money. No. Government expenditure means government is spending this money for all the different purposes. Okay, and ultimate aim is what? To achieve the higher economic growth and development. It is the ultimate achieve. Government wants to achieve this. Here we are talking about the government expenditure G. And you are knowing that government is going to spend the money in the economy, then definitely government has to earn. Government has to earn. And how can you earn? Taxes is the way. The major source, the government depending on the taxes. The government has to receive it. Government has to get the money. Receipts you can say. We are not using the word income. The receipts you can say. The government has to get the money to fund the expenditure. Clear to all? Please write. Okay. Write few lines, all of you. Yeah. Right. Fiscal policy involves use of taxation, and government spending to influence economy, to influence economy, to influence economy, influence economy, that is adjusts its its level of revenue, adjusts its level of revenue and spending and spending and spending in order to monitor monitor and influence the economy and influence the economy okay, to achieve higher economic growth and development, to achieve higher economic growth and development. Okay, right, change the parry, right? Fiscal policy has following objectives. Fiscal policy has following objectives, but remember overall objective is growth and development. These things you remember. Following objectives oblique goals, you can write following objectives oblique goals. Right, first you write higher economic growth and development. This is the first priority, higher economic growth and development. Higher economic growth and development. Okay, higher economic growth and development. Next you write industrialization. Okay, next you write development of agriculture and allied activities. Development of agriculture and allied sectors, you can write development of agriculture and allied sectors. Okay, right, encouraging savings and investments. Encouraging savings and investments. Encouraging savings and investments. Savings and investments. Clear? Next you write creating job opportunities. Yeah, you take the example of Manrega. Creating job opportunities. Clear? Next you write promoting exports. Okay, next infrastructure development. Next social sector development. Next you write social sector development. And next you write stability of the economy, etc. etc. Fine. Is it clear to all? Before these total taxes, here we are taking for this equation, that is the one thing. Here is we are taking the direct taxes to understand the aggregate demand. Okay, direct taxes here we are taking, because directly you are deducting from the taxes. But because to understand the system, we have to use some instrument. So this instrument we are using. So in this here identity, since directly you are subtracting from income, so this income must be the direct taxes. But you understand if you take even the indirect taxes, so even increasing indirect taxes going to reduce your real income, and decrease in real income is going to decrease your level of consumption. So in different way it will work. So directly you are not saying from this equation, this identity, but if you think about it, then interpretations and the impact you can explain it through this identity. So that's the reason I'm saying I just connected you. Okay, yes, if increase in taxes if government is increasing taxes, is going to decrease aggregate demand through the disposable income. And one side, yes, direct taxes increase, direct taxes is going to decrease disposable income, so consumption is going to decrease. But how much exactly you are consuming goods and services, again depending on the market price of the product. If market price is going up due to the taxes, the indirect taxes, again you are going to buy the less amount. So interpretation you can do in this way, but as far as this identity is concerned, here only the direct taxes we are considering. Clear? Okay, you are saying, ki, sir, I am stuck in CRR and SLR difference. Please, sir, explain the SLR. Okay, I think you started reading this. I'm discussing the fiscal policy, but since you asked, so CRR, if you go back to the monetary system, CRR we have discussed with you. Under CRR, cash reserve ratio or CRR provisions, the banks has to calculate, okay, calculate a certain percentage out of the NDTL, okay, and how much it is there as per the prescribed or per the norms which is fixed by the RBI, that much amount of cash you have to deposit with the CRR. If you take the CRR is 4.5%, take the CRR 4.5%, okay. So if CRR is 4.5%, okay, and you calculate on the NDTL, CRR is 4.5%, then how much 4.5% of NDTL you are calculated, that much amount you have to deposit with RBI in the form of cash. That is CRR, cash reserve ratio. SLR, okay, you have played the same base NDTL. Say SLR is your 18%. So 18% of NDTL you have to calculate, and that much amount of money you have to use for buying the government securities. Government securities. You are buying the government securities. So basically SLR basically this much of money is diverted from the banking system to the government to fund the government expenditure. Because under SLR provisions, mainly you are buying the government securities out of this money. Some amount is allowed to keep in cash and gold, but that is a very fraction amount, very fraction amount. RBI always controls on that, but mostly you are keeping it in the government securities. So this money goes to the government, and government is using it. But government securities you have to keep with yourself. Okay, that's the difference. Clear? Fine, come back here. So what you are getting here? So fiscal policy, yes. So from this equation you can say that fiscal policy of the government, basically you can divide in one: expansionary, fiscal policy, and you can say that contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy. Clear? Expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. Clear? Just think, in expansionary fiscal policy, basically, when you can say, so the whole fiscal policy you divide it into two different ways. One is known as expansionary fiscal policy and one is known as a contractionary fiscal policy. Now, depending on steps taken by the government of India. If suppose government is increasing G and oblique or, if government increasing G and cut down the T taxes, why and oblique or? Because government can take change one of the instruments or both at the same time. Government may increase G and also cut down the T both at the same time, or they can only increase G, no change in T, or they cut down in T, no change in the G. That they can do that. So here, this both we have taken and or. If government is doing this, then ultimately what is going to happen? Your aggregate demand is going to increase. Just think about it. Just like connect it. Aggregate demand is equal to what? C, which is function of disposable income, plus G. So what you're getting this? Go back to this equation. This one. If government cut down the T and or increases the G, decrease in T or increase in G, both are going to increase your aggregate demand. Because increase in government expenditure will increase the aggregate demand for goods and services. Decrease in taxes directly is going to increase the disposable income, going to increase consumption, and increase in consumption again going to increase the aggregate demand. Both the way. So aggregate demand is going up. And dear, go back to the first few classes I have discussed. We built up a framework with you. If there is an increase in aggregate demand in the country, because overall you can see the whole policy today of the government of India, RBI. Yeah, RBI's policy is just diverted from this way due to the higher inflation prevailing in the country. But if you just 5-6 months back, then both were only one inclinations, increase aggregate demand. Because you're knowing that if there is increase in aggregate demand, so Y, which is the level of output, is going up. Y will increase. Y is output also and Y is income also. The first class I have discussed with you. So if Y is going to increase, then your employment is also going to increase, because to produce higher level of output, you need more labor, and you are hiring more labor in the productive activities, means employment keeps increasing. And increase in output means you achieve the higher economic growth. And if we are assuming that if there is economic growth, there is a development. So you are getting your motive of higher economic growth and development, and also employment increasing. So you are able to fulfill your targets. Clear? So that is the way expansive monetary policy expansive fiscal policy works. Contractionary, when you can say if government is going to decrease G and oblique or T, they are going to increase. Yeah, they are going to increase. So either these steps may be taken by the government, or this step is taken by the government, or both the steps government may take at the same time. So if government is doing this, then ultimately your aggregate demand in the country is going up. AD will go up. Am I right? Not yet. Aggregate demand is going to decrease. Clear? Decrease. Always, that's always in economics, I request, always don't write vice versa. Okay. Because here decrease in aggregate demand will follow like this. Yeah. It may happen in the country, but intention of the policy is not to decrease output and employment. Then what is the intention of this? This intention is to decrease the excess demand to decrease excess demand in the country, because if there is a fall in excess demand in the country, you are able to control inflation also. I know it's a fiscal policy, its target is economic growth and development, but you have to understand, if you are not able to control inflations, then you can't achieve the higher economic growth and development. Why? Because inflation inflation creates conducive environment in the country for higher economic growth and development. So ultimately you are going to control the inflations. And if you are able to control inflations, then only you can achieve the higher economic growth and development. So you are fulfilling your objective, but in different ways. But ultimately you are reaching that. Because if you're in your economy, if inflation is really very high and you are crossed a certain limit, then it's not good for the country. Like in Indian economy, the maximum limit is already decided by the government, because that is the 6%. So 6% is decided by the government. Okay, these things you have to understand the contractionary fiscal policy. Clear, dear? Check all of you. Any problem? Anything? So, what is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy related to the government expenditure and taxes. There is a expenditure means you can well understand. Yes, what is the meaning of government expenditure? Government is spending this money on different activities. I mean different plan, policies, and other, which is contributing to your higher economic growth and development. And finally, your aim is or ultimate aim is to achieve the higher economic growth and development. Clear? Now, you have written this. So, now you just tell me, okay, the government takes the fiscal policy or fiscal decisions that's related to expenditure and the taxes. Government takes in a year, government takes in a week, 6 months, 2 months, 1 month. What is the criteria? Okay, so just think about, government is not deciding these all major expenditure and taxes every month or 6 months or quarterly. Government decides once in a year. Once in a year. And where they are deciding? Through the budget. How they are deciding? Through the budget, we can say. Where? Definitely in the parliament. Because finance ministry is making the budget. But the finance ministry cannot take the decisions. The finance ministry can make the budget, but finance ministry has to present budget in the parliament. And first, the Ministry of Finance has to take the approval from the parliament. Only they can use the money from Consolidated Fund of India. And all money you are receiving in the name of Government of India goes to the Consolidated Fund of India. In name of Government of India, it is going to the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, so if you want to spend money from Consolidated Fund of India, then you have to take permission from the parliament. But for every expenditure, you are not going to borrow from the, getting to permission from the parliament. So what you're doing, on an average, in 1 year, how much money you are going to spend on different activities, you can estimate, and how much taxes you are going to collect, that you can estimate, and on the basis of estimation, you can get approval from the parliament. And if parliament is permitting you, then you can borrow this, you can take money from the Consolidated Fund of India. Not borrow, you can take and use it. So basically, if fiscal policy you think in the different way, it's nothing but it is a budget of Government of India. Budget of Government of India. Why? Because all expenditure related to different sectors, different activities, they are mentioned in the budget. This much money we need it in this fiscal year. And these are the taxes we are going to collect and maintain this expenditure. So you have to present in the budget, and budget must be passed. So fiscal policy in alternative way, it's nothing but the fiscal budget. So now we are moving to the budget of the Government of India. Yeah, dear, you are asking, sir, please repeat contractionary fiscal policy. Nothing, dear. Expansionary, I think you are getting it. When the government is taking some steps, and ultimate aim is to increase aggregate demand. If government's ultimate aim is to increase aggregate demand, then it's fine. It is known as the expansion monetary policy. But always increasing aggregate demand is not the solution in the country, dear. Okay, always increasing aggregate demand is not the solution in the country. Suppose you can reach at a particular level where the economy is facing the supply constraint due to maybe so many reasons, maybe so many reasons. Okay, lack of capital, since the demand for seasonal product has increased, so you can wait for the seasons only. Okay, other supply chain problems is there, the disruption in the supply chain. Again, you are facing you are not getting the proper supply of the particular product. Any reasons? If your economy is facing excess demand and you are not taking any steps, then it is going to create the okay. You can click the photo when I am not there. Okay. Let me tell you. So suppose if aggregate demand is more and economy is not in a position to increase the production and supply, okay, so economy will face excess demand and it leads to higher inflation in the country, which can really destabilize your country if the inflation is beyond a certain level or beyond a certain point. So here RBI is doing that, but here government may also do that. They can decrease to some extent the government expenditure. Government can increase taxes to some extent so that they are also able to decrease the aggregate demand and you are able to control the inflation. That you can do that. Okay, that is a contraction. If government is doing this, they are taking these steps, then you can say it's a contractionary fiscal policy. Any of these two or both, it is there. Okay. Now, someone of you click the photo and sending me asking, someone tell me C is multiple with y minus t or it function. It's a function, dear. It's a function. Go back to this now. Separately, I have already discussed with you. You are talking about this now. Just go back this. See what I have written. C is the functions. So y minus t is the function one. Okay. So sometimes when you are writing like this, you are also writing C, which you can see is the function of y minus t. You can write it. So here C is the function. C is the function. C we written the function. It's not the multiple. It's a representation of function for that. I'm saying now, consumption is the function of disposable income or income. We just modified. Clear? Okay, dear. Okay, two more questions you are asking, sir. Excess demand causes inflation, but with increased price of goods, there is a decrease in demand also. So, sir, should not inflation itself lead to decrease in inflation because of decline in demand due to high prices, like a negative feedback loop? You are right. You are right. It is a self-adjusting mechanism. It is known as self-adjusting mechanism. But problem is that it takes your time. It takes time. Okay. And you cannot leave everything to the market one. This may happen. Basically, you can say this may happen after 6 months or 7 months or maybe a year. So how long you can wait for that? How long you can wait for that? Okay. So you can't leave everything. Yeah, we are just, it's the theory says that if you leave everything, the market will adjust and it will come back. But you can't leave everything on the market. You can't leave everything on the market. You have to take your decision in time bound manner. Just a minute. Okay. We can't leave this economy. It will take 6 months, 1 year. Meanwhile, that can adversely affect your country. So you have to take to bring your inflation under control in time-bound manner. So you have to take steps basically. That's the reason they are taking it. Second, you're asking, sir, to control inflation, RBI can take steps using monetary policy. So why? See, it's one of the way, one of the instruments, one of the way what the government can also do that. See, both are the guardian of economy. Both are the guardian of economy. You understand? So RBI has the primary objective, but government cannot see everything's doing nothing. If government wants, then government has instruments government can do also. Is supposed to some extent RBI is not able to control inflation through the monetary policy. So government may also help it to control it like this in this way. And sometimes government is doing that. Okay. Next you are asking, said both G and T can increase or decrease. If T increases, then government will receive more money. They can use it for more government expenditure and vice versa. See, remember dear, for government it's not mandatory. Okay, both they have to increase. No, not necessary one. Because government may face the deficit, but government has the option to borrow it. And most of the times government is doing that. Most of the times in most of the country of this world, government expenditure is more than the taxes. I mean collection, total receipts. We will see in India also. But suppose if there is a demand in the economy, it's a priority in the economy. So government may go for that. But maybe for few months, few years, maybe 1 year or maybe 6 months, 7 months. But government again will change the steps. Suppose where is a higher inflation, RBI is not able to control immediately. So government can go for that. And the moment after 2 and 3 months, if it is under control, again government will just give the priority, they will change the priority. So you have to decide according to the priority, what is the priority today. If fiscal policy does not mean that government keeps increasing the G and cut down the taxes or increase this, depending on the government decisions. So these are the options we are saying that. Okay, government has option, they may go for this, they may go for this. Okay. And also government may just do that both. Okay, government can increase G also and T also, depending on the government. दोनों कर सकता है government. Okay, so that is basically balancing the government, balancing the aggregate demand, balancing the economy. Here is the two extreme points we can say. Yes, they can go for expansion, they can go for the contractionary. Clear? In this way we can take this. Fine here. Now, next, so you are getting this, fiscal policy, if you think, then government is deciding the expenditure and taxes basically once in a year through the budget. So now next we are going to discuss about the budget. Clear? Just write first budget, write few lines dear. Right. Yeah, repayment of loan, again they will pay the increase the taxes. It is going on. It is going on. In this way economy works. You take the example, the pandemic, the government increased the expenditure, but that much of taxes is not collected by the government. Government faced around more than 9% fiscal deficits, and government borrowed it, and that burden is going to shift to the public again. So this is the practical mechanism, and we have to accept it. But yes, in different way we have to look this matter. Okay, clear? So just write budget. Budget is an right. Budget is an annual financial statement. Budget is an annual financial statement of the government. Budget is an annual financial statement of the government which represents which represents which represents estimated expenditure of the government, which represents estimated expenditure of the government and estimated receipts of the government and estimated receipts of the government during a given fiscal year, during a given fiscal year, during a given fiscal year. So what you're saying? What you're saying, dear? See, read this, you can get one thing. Okay, just read once. Okay, getting? So what you have written? Budget is an annual financial statement of the government which represents estimated expenditure of the government and estimated receipts of the government during a given period of time. Okay, for a given period. During means for a given period of time. Okay, just you think. Why you are saying estimated expenditure and estimated receipts? The reason is, if you take the last budget, and this budget you take the example. So on 1st Feb 2023, Government of India is going to present the budget. So on 1st Feb, they are going to present the budget. But on this date, you are going to present the budget for 2023-24. Okay, 23-24. On this date, the budget is going to present in, for this fiscal year, 23-24. See, this 23 this fiscal year is starting from 1st April, and they're going to end on 31st March 2024. So you are going to spend the money from 1st April 2023. You are going to receive the money from 1st April 2023 till your 31st March 2024. But when you are presenting on 1st Feb 2023, it means the day you are presenting your budget, not a single rupee you spent, not a single rupee you received. So all expenditure you mentioned in the budget are estimated, and it is known as the budget estimated. It is known as the budget estimates. It is known as budget estimates. It is known as budget estimates. Okay, budget estimates, because it's estimated in the budget. So expenditure is known as the estimated expenditure, and receipts is known as the estimated receipts. Clear? That's the one thing. Okay, dear. So you have written this. Fine. Now, budget you can represent in two different. I am writing budget in two different flowchart. Same thing, but writing is different. Flowchart I am presenting is different. So one you can say budget you can divide in two parts. One you can say capital budget, and one you can say revenue budget. Okay, capital budget is देखो दिया right, all of you. First you write same thing, same concept, but different flow chart. Huh? The way of presentation is different. Right, please. So, Asri, what you're trying to say? Sir, we are concerned about excess demand in controlling inflation. Fine. What are those zones and areas outputs this excess demand is created? Please you send it again. Okay. With more clarity, definitely I will discuss. So you made this flow chart. Now, try to get this, dear. It is also budget. It is also budget. Same thing I present it in two different ways. Why? The reason is this way we have to know, we have to write, we have to present it. So anywhere you are writing or in any exam you are writing, make sure that this flow chart you are going to follow. In this way you have to write. This flow chart is the way we are going to clear our concept. So we are going to learn in this way, but when we are going to write something, I mean related to this, we have to write in this way. The question asked by the commission this way, and we have to write and we have to prepare in this way. Only concept clarity, we are going to use this flow chart. Okay, but once you get it, your focus will be given on this flow chart. So first you get the meaning of this. Here budget we have written, and already you are saying that budget is related to expenditure of the government and receipts of the government. Expenditure of the government and receipts of the government. Fine. When you are saying expenditure, when you are saying budget meaning. So budget is divided into two type of budget. One is known as the capital budget and one is known as the revenue budget. So basically budget is divided into two parts or two groups, you can say. Capital budget and second one is the revenue budget. Capital budget, when you are saying that, so budget means related to expenditure and receipt of the government. So in the capital budget, all expenditures are capital expenditure and all receipts are capital receipts. That is a capital budget. So if you want to write one line, so just from this diagram you can write the capital budget is related to capital expenditure and capital receipts. Yeah, what is capital expenditure and capital receipts? We are going to clear our concept from this flow chart. Let me, I'm coming here. Okay. Second one is what? Revenue budget. Second one is what? Revenue budget. So when you are talking about revenue budget, when you're talking about the revenue budget, so you're knowing budget means expenditure and receipts of the government. So revenue budget, the expenditure is known as revenue expenditure, and receipts is known as revenue receipts. So simply you can say that. Okay, revenue budget is related to revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. And what is that? From this diagram, other flow chart that we are going to get. Now check first of all. First diagram flow chart is clear. Yeah, please wait. Don't send any question related to this. Wait first. Let me clear your concept. Then you send me. Okay, because just I made a flow chart and I started sending the questions. Let me discuss first. Then I will discuss. After getting it, let me explain you. Then you send me question if you are not getting that. Okay. So is it clear? This way we have to remember the budget concept. Now come back here, this diagram. So you can see budget, it's related to government expenditure. In this diagram, it's related to government expenditure. And yes, it is related to government receipts. Okay. Here you see, we have taken all expenditure of the government. And the all expenditure is divided into two type of expenditure. One is known as capital expenditure and other is known as the revenue expenditure. Okay. In government receipts, we have taken two types of receipts. One is the capital receipts, another is the revenue receipts. Clear? Just check this. The different way we have taken government expenditure combined, government receipts combined. So expenditure having two, capital expenditure, revenue expenditure, and receipts having capital receipts and revenue receipts. Now, okay, clear? You have written this? Now, government expenditure. Just get it clear. So, government expenditure, I am taking one by one. Government expenditure, I'm going to discuss in this way. So, you are knowing government expenditure, you discuss two types. One is the capital expenditure, and second you are saying it's a revenue expenditure. Okay, now clear? How can you understand these two type of expenditure? So let us consider I am here and you assume you are also here in my place, and here it's a central government, and central government is spending the money. Central government is spending the money. Okay. Before going to discuss, you remember I have discussed with you the concept of assets and liabilities. Yeah, I've discussed with you the concept of assets and liabilities. Assets means when your claim is there. Always the asset concept is when your claim is there, it is your assets. Maybe your house is there, your property is there, but you are claiming on that. You are always claim on that. So it come under the asset concepts. If something which is with you, but it's others' liabilities, if something which is with you, but it's others' liabilities, then it is known as, others' claim, not liabilities. If something which is with you, but it's others' claim, then it is liabilities for you. You remember that? Again, I'm repeating. Maybe you are Getting because I used one word. So what I'm trying to say, asset means if your claim is there, then for you it's assets. Something which is with you, but it's others claims, others claim, then we can say it's, for me it's a liabilities. So just keeping in your mind assets and liabilities, now you come here and you assume yourself as the accountant of the government, or you have the responsibility to record the transactions of the government. Clear? Suppose government is standing here and government is spending say 10,000 crore rupee. So if government spends 10,000 rupees in the economy, and the message you received, yes, 10,000 crores is spent by the government. And the moment you receive these informations, you are going to record it in your book. The moment you open the book, expenditure book, then you can see, oh, there are two entries. One is the capital expenditure and one is the revenue expenditure. Now question, where you have to put this expenditure? So how can you classify? So classification is on the base, or in the classification is based on assets or liabilities. Simple in one word, assets or liabilities. So any expenditure, if it is incurred by the government, and that expenditure is related to assets or liabilities. Here assets means including your capital. It's related to creation of asset capital, not creations, just related to assets or liabilities. Then that expenditure will consider under the capital expenditure. So what do you mean by the related to assets and liabilities? So if you're spending the money, either it's created assets or increased capital, or it is going to decrease your liabilities, then that expenditure will be capital expenditure. That expenditure will be capital expenditure. Like I'm giving one example. Suppose you are the states and I'm here the central government. I lended you some amount. So amount I lended you, I given you loan, but it is expenditure for me for this particular fiscal year. It is expenditure for me for this particular fiscal year. But this expenditure, the expenditure I made this time, this fiscal year, has created my claim. Because the moment I given you loan, from that day I started claim on you. This much amount you have to give it back. Loan amount I am telling you. So this expenditure is related to claim, that is assets. So this expenditure will be the part of my capital expenditure. Clear? A capital expenditure. Or I spend this money for directly for creation of assets and capital formation. Suppose I build up a infrastructure, or I have set up some buildings for the government and other things we created. So we can say it's a capital expenditure. Or suppose I borrowed some amount in the previous year, but this year I paid my dues. I paid my loan amount this year. For this year it is expenditure. But this expenditure has decreased that much of my liabilities. So yes, this expenditure is decreased my liabilities. So any of these two may be, either it's going to create assets or capital formations, or it is going to decrease my liabilities. So this expenditure is termed as the capital expenditure. You see, that is the reason that capital expenditure is defined as the money spent by the government, if it is related to assets or liabilities, it is a part of capital expenditure. Just check there. Okay, just rethink. Think all of you. Clear? 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 Yo, just reverse it. Just reverse it. Reverse it means just think different way. If government is spending money, but it is not changing or not related to assets or liabilities, it's not related to assets or liabilities, then that expenditure will be the part of your revenue expenditure. That expenditure will be part of revenue expenditure. So simple one-line concept. Expenditure of the government, if it is related to assets or liabilities, it is known as capital expenditure. If it is not related to assets and liabilities, it is known as revenue expenditure. Just you think this, capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. Clear? So got the meaning of this too? Clear? Like suppose I paid salaries to my staff, that is government staff. So after payment, I'm not creating any assets, I'm not creating any capital. Just you think government point of view, for government, not for the economy. The moment you start thinking about the economy, you may get confused. Just you think as a government, okay, and government point of view, for the government, any change in assets and capital? No. Any change in the decrease in any liability, public debt? No. So it is a part of your capital, revenue expenditure. Suppose subsidy given by the government, revenue expenditure. So this way you can take. Is it clear? It is clear, then fine. Just please write few lines. Right here. Government expenditure can be divided into two parts. First you write revenue expenditure. Right, revenue expenditure. Any expenditure of the government that does not change assets or liabilities of the government, are the part of revenue expenditure. Full stop, right? It is generally, just write like revenue expenditure generally does not create capital assets. Generally, revenue expenditure does not create capital assets. So when you're writing capital assets, means it includes both capital and formation and asset creation, capital assets. Clear? Both are included. So generally we mean by that. Generally means what? Generally means sometimes it may. Later I will come why we are writing like this. Right here. Right. Revenue expenditure includes. So when you're writing the revenue expenditure, so just you write like hyphen this, like in this way you can write. Okay. You start writing this first one like this, second one like this. Just keep writing. Right. Interest payments. Next, defense expenditure. Remember dear, if you see the defense expenditure, since defense expenditure is very huge expenditure. Defense expenditure is very huge expenditure. So if you take total expenditure by the government, some of the expenditure is spent just like the revenue expenditure, like the salary paid to the defense personnel, the expenditure incurred on the food, the uniform. So these are come under the revenue expenditure. But other expenditure like the establishment of the ordnance factories, cantonment board, infrastructure development, these come under the capital expenditure. So it may be both. Defense expenditure, next subsidies, next public administration, subsidies, next public administration, next you write all grants given to state governments, all grants given to state governments and other parties, all grants given to state governments and other parties are treated as revenue expenditure, revenue expenditure, but some of the grants may be used for creation of capital assets, That was reason earlier you have written it generally does not create assets, may be used for creation of capital assets. Clear? Change the pair, you write only one line. Revenue expenditure is similar to maintenance and consumption expenditure. Revenue expenditure is similar to maintenance and consumption expenditure. Revenue, written one line, revenue expenditure is similar to maintenance and consumption expenditure. Just you read this line. What you are reading this. So one of you send me the one questions, sir, please differentiate capital and revenue. So you are getting the word, the meaning of the capital and revenue here. Concept is something different because it's related to the expenditure. So what is capital expenditure and what is the revenue expenditure? So revenue expenditure is clear. So only one line you read in that, revenue expenditure does not relate with assets or liabilities. So you just see all the items. Yeah, sometimes you may be possible you are getting problem in interest. Okay, sir, how the interest is the capital expenditure. Yeah. Just think one point. 2 points is here. Let me clear first. Interest, you are saying, maybe you are thinking, some of you thinking that's why interest rate is revenue expenditure. So always you consider after the expenditure. Then you can decide it. Then you can just keep it. Then only you can get the clear-cut idea why interest is part of that. For understanding purpose, I'm telling you. Suppose I requested you give me some amount as a loan to me. And suppose I asked you to give me 10,000 rupees as a loan. You given me 10,000 rupees loan. But with the condition that every month I have to give you, say, 2,000 rupees as interest. Whatever percentage you calculate, 2,000 rupees every month interest form I have to give you. Interest only, not the principal. Suppose in next month I paid you 2,000 rupees. So 2,000 is my expenditure. Suppose I am going to categorize it. This expenditure is what? Capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. I have to go to the same basic concept. If expenditure is related to assets or liabilities, then only I can say this expenditure is capital, not related, sorry. Here we are talking about revenue expenditure, not related with assets or liabilities, then only it is going to be revenue expenditure. Now, interest I paid but my overall liability is to pay you 10,000 rupees. That much amount remains same. There is no change in my liabilities. And 2,000 I paid you, it's not created any assets and capital formation for me. So interest paid you is known as the revenue expenditure because it's not related to my assets, it's not related to my liability. So interest what I paid you, it's known as the revenue expenditure. Now, grants and loans. Yes, grants and loans, the difference is what? Loan means I given you the amount, but you have to pay it back. I given you loan, but you have to pay it back. अब हमको वापस देना है. That is the loan. Grants means I given you money, but you don't need to give it back. Okay, you don't need to give it back. So, if suppose central government given the loan to states, means loan is that amount you have to give it back to the central government. But if central government given you grants, so grants received by you or are given by the central government, you don't need to give it back. So even the amount I given you in the form of grant, so it's not creating any assets and capital for me and not helped and not decreasing my liabilities. Remember here, you have to just consider that at the transaction point, the transaction between you and me, you are the state and the central government. So transaction happened and this transaction is not changed my asset and liabilities. So grants are considered as the revenue expenditure. Maybe this money received by you are a state, this money you are going to use for the asset creation capital formations indirectly for me. You are creating it, but when you see the state budget, then this amount is going to be your capital expenditure. But for me, you just see the transaction at the point of transaction, no change in assets or liabilities. So for me, it is a capital revenue expenditure. But this money overall has created some assets, But since I am taking at the transaction point of view, at these transactions, so since it is not related to that, so it's come under the revenue expenditure. That is the reason you have written one line. Revenue expenditure it does not creates generally any assets. Generally means sometimes creates, but not directly for me. It's overall it's happening in the economy, but indirectly through states or through other bodies. Clear? But for me it's not. Yeah, if same amount of grants, suppose I'm not giving you, I just use for hospitals, new hospital formations, schools, then these grants for me, this expenditure that time it will be the capital expenditure. So just where you are considering this transaction, it matters, and that is going to decide for central government whether it's revenue expenditure or not. Clear? Since the whole revenue expenditure amount is not creating any capital assets and not decreasing any liabilities, so the revenue expenditure for the government, central government, is considered as normal, as consumption expenditure. Is consumption expenditure. Okay, clear? Is consumption expenditure. And maintenance and consumption expenditure both are the same. Okay, it's known as the maintenance and consumption expenditure. That is the things. So last line you have written, yes, this revenue expenditure is similar like maintenance and consumption expenditure. Maintenance means suppose you have a building and you are spending few thousand on the maintenance of the building, but that expenditure is not going to create any additional assets. So maintenance and consumption expenditures, they are the revenue expenditure in the sense of that. Clear? So in one line you can say consumption expenditure, not the asset creation. So you can say revenue expenditure similar like consumption expenditure. Clear here? Yes, dear. Someone has sent the question, but you delete it. Other question I'm getting, sir. For revenue expenditure, you give a salary payment example, but my question is, salary holders have a claim on this to the government. So, giving the salary, government decreases liabilities. So, how you put this example in revenue expenditure? Subrata, Vairagya, Nadia. And one more question, sir, can you please provide few examples of revenue expenditure? I given you now examples. Okay, you can take. Subrata, you take one thing. You are saying salary, but you understand about liability means you are serving. You understand the salary concept. You go back to the first class. Salary means you earned. You earned. So you are getting your share amount. You served. You provided your services. You are getting it. But after all, after payments, you think. After payments, you think. Always see after the payment. So salary is not the date amount. Salary is not the date amount. It's not considered as a date amount. You served the government. You generated the goods and services, and government is giving you this amount. Okay, government is giving this amount. Government is not giving you from your pocket, his pocket. Suppose you're a teacher, you are providing the services. You are a doctor, you are providing the medical services. So basically, it's an income you earned it, but yes, through the government route, not through the private route. Government is giving you salary. You are serving at any stage something. Okay, so salaries are government is giving you, true, but salaries, if suppose after payment, it is not the liabilities. Salary never come under the liabilities, this payment. Okay, and after the payment of salaries, if you think about the liabilities, it's not going to change. You take the public debt, the salary never come under the public debt. Public debt means loan of the government. So salary is not the loan here. Okay, so salary, payment of salary, you have to tackle it very different way. If government paid it, the government's liability is not going to decrease. And again, when you received your payment, okay, you are not going to pay it back to the government. So claim of the government's claim is not there after payment. So claim has not changed, liabilities is not changed. So salary comes under the revenue expenditure. In this way, you have to take there. Okay. Next, if some of the money from defense expenditure used to make a aircraft or naval ship, then will it still be considered as revenue? No, dear Partha, just I have discussed with you. Defense expenditure is very huge amount. Defense expenditure is very huge amount. Please listen, all of you. Defense expenditure is very huge amount. Some part of expenditure is only in the nature of revenue expenditure, and some part of the expenditure is the nature of capital expenditure. Capital expenditure. The example what Partha is giving, this example is example for the capital expenditure. But suppose you are paying the salary to the defense personnel, you are spending on the food of them, food for them, uniform for them, and other consumption items. It is the revenue expenditure. Okay, so in this way you have to take. Okay, is it clear to all, or still you are getting problem? You know, I know this one, but you have to take this at the point of transaction. You have to consider where you are transacting it. At that point, you have to consider. Clear or not? Any other point you can say? Let me sit in front of you. Okay. Find here or any other doubts? Simple and only one way. You only consider transactions at a point where this is happening. Always you should consider in the behalf of the central government here. And asset and liabilities you consider after the payment. After the payment, then you will not going to get any confusion. Because if you see the government documents, you can see this way it's already defined. This is the very basic principle on which the government, formulates the plan. Formulates this budget. So on the same way you have to follow this. Okay, at a point of transactions, in the government point of view, and better you take after the expenditure, then you can better understand it. You paid the salary, then you think, yes, is it any change in liabilities? So no, it's not. Any increase in assets and the capital? No, for the government point of view. I know maybe you are getting the salary, you are accumulating and you are forming any assets. That is a different issue. But government transition, at the government point of view, you can see at that moment, nothing happened. So it's a revenue expenditure. So government claimed our income, some part, through income taxes. How we can say government not claim? Sorry, Biswajit, don't take in this way. Don't take in this way. Taxes becomes the revenue part of the government, receipts part. It is not the expenditure part. So you please take two in very different ways. That is the reason, if you want to know the system, you have to follow a particular principle. If you're following a particular principle, then only you can get and you can understand the whole system. Randomly we can't do. It's not the personal business. Okay, I'm taking in one hand the money and I'm giving it at the same time. No. All the money received, it will go to first, it will go to the Consulate Fund of India in the name of Government of India. Any money you are receiving. So one hands will only receive the payment. It is a receipt part. And from that, after receiving, then your proper way you are spending the money, that is expenditure side. So before this, you can't can't connect it to this one. So don't just do in this way. There is a proper way. You are considering the expenditure, just consider the expenditure side. And when you are considering the receipt, just you consider the receipt side. Okay. These two different hands you have to consider. You are getting the money, you are putting here. Okay, just these hands will only know to receive the money, the receipt part. You accumulate this money and this hand you are using for the expenditure. So all the records from expenditure is these hands and all the records and receipts in these hands. Then we will come to the deficit part. Don't mix up these things. So salary you paid, that moment you only consider the expenditure part. And government is not claiming your salary. It is the rules and provisions since you earn. Not always in whole economy, everyone is not working in the government sector. They are not earning this. It means what? If you are earning in the economy, you have to pay tax. Maybe from government sector, maybe from in the private sector. You have to pay to the tax. That is a receipt part of the government. But here government is spending this money. Okay. So here you only consider the expenditure part. And you are saying that taxes is the claim. No, taxes is the claim is true. But only one that's under the tax provision, but that is going to the receipt part of the government. How much you are earning, a part you have to pay the taxes. But it's a different concept. It's a receipt part you have to take. Don't mix up these two things. Okay. Now next you think these two are clear, capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. Now only one point to remember, okay, revenue expenditure is similar like it's a maintenance and consumption expenditure, similar like. But what do you have to say? Revenue expenditure. Fine. Just write capital expenditure. Clear or not? If not clear, then you can just send me the questions. Capital expenditure, right? Any expenditure of the government, that changes the assets or liabilities of the government are the part of capital expenditure. Clear? Capital expenditure includes right, like loans given to states and other parties. Loans given to states and other parties. Yes. So, and here loans given may definitely from by the central government. So suppose central government giving you loan to the states. So very moment, and that the moment it's given to you, from that day a claim is started. You have to pay. Okay. So one thing you remember, asset means you are claiming on that. So claim is started. So claim generated. So it's your claim on the states of this much amount. So it is a part of your assets. Clear. So here claim is generated, so it is a part of capital expenditure. So includes loans given to states and other parties. Clear. Next you write expenditure incurred by the government, expenditure incurred by the government on creation of capital assets, creation of capital assets. Next one you write repayment of loans. Next you write repayment of loans. Clear, etc. etc. Just check all the expenditure. These are the nature of capital expenditure. Check all of you. Like the first you are written that, yeah, loans given to states and other parties. Yes, if suppose the central government given loans to state government, so a claim has generated, so there is change in assets, so it's a part of your capital expenditure. Take the expenditure for creation of capital assets. Yes, if directly the central government spent the money and that's created the assets or capital formation, again it is a part of capital expenditure. Repayment of loans. What do you mean by the repayment of loans? Say in previous year I took some loan, maybe from the public, maybe from the RBI. So, but this year I am paying back. So this year if I paid, so definitely this amount comes under my expenditure, total expenditure. So it is expenditure, but which type of expenditure? Because if I am spending this much amount, then this much of liabilities is going to decrease. So this expenditure is related to my liabilities. Okay. So either expenditure is going to increase your assets or claim, or expenditure that is going to decrease your liabilities. So that is known as the capital expenditure. This is the way. So capital expenditure generally it's increasing your assets or capital formations, or it may also decrease your liabilities. Clear dear? Just check all of you. Sir, how high revenue expenditure indicates poverty and backwardness of the country? Good. You're asking how high revenue expenditure indicates poverty and backwardness of the economy, because if suppose the more backwardness and the poverty is there and you are using in your country on more subsidy, okay, maintenance of and the consumption expenditure, maintenance of the economy, you are running so many social welfare functions for the poverty and backwardness, so it is there. Okay, that is one of the reason. But solution is not that. Solution is what? Solution for these things, if you are increasing more amount, on two things. On what? You are getting these things if you are spending more on capital expenditure, which is the, you can see in the budget. You see in the budget, then government today focusing more on capital expenditure. Why they are focusing more on capital expenditure? Only two reasons. Okay, if you just leave the decrease in liabilities part, then finally it is going to increase your assets or capital formations. If you are able to create more assets and capital formation, then the production potential in the country is going to increase. And if it is going to increase, then only you are going to increase production and you are able to generate employment. And if you are doing that, then only you can solve the problem of poverty and backwardness. So country must spend more on capital expenditure other than the revenue expenditure. Okay, so if you see the budget and the government view, then they are spending, they started spending more on the capital expenditure. It's good things, but there are so many services, there are so many setup. This expenditure is very, very necessary, very, very necessary. Okay, maybe for social welfare functions, maybe for the essential services you are providing. And these expenditure are in the nature of revenue expenditure. So it is also necessary one, also necessary one. So you have to balance between these two. But unnecessary revenue expenditure, because revenue expenditure is not going to increase your assets and increase in your capital, expand capital. So in the long term, if you see to increase the output, achieve the higher economic growth and development, increase the employment opportunities, it is only possible if country is spending more in the capital expenditure. And that is the reason there is one thing is coming in the in debate. The government should go for more capital expenditure and less the revenue expenditure. But revenue expenditure is a necessary one also, because to meet the essential services and for social welfare function like subsidy you are talking about, other measures you are talking about, government has to give. And why the government is doing more revenue expenditure? Because due to more poor people, more backwardness. Suppose today, if government is giving you under National Food Security Act the 1 rupee cereals and 2 rupees wheat and 3 rupees rice under through TPDA system, the huge subsidy government is giving their food subsidy, and which is your part of your revenue expenditure. So why government is giving it? If poor people is more, then more quantity they have to give it. So definitely the amount of subsidy is going to be higher. Okay, more backwardness and the poverty. These two are very complementary in nature. Agar backwardness hai, there must be poverty. Okay, and poverty is there, huge poverty, backwardness is there. Because if you are able to solve the backwardness, that is the country started developing or state is started developing, then definitely the production keeps going on and employment is increasing, people are getting jobs, so you are able to solve the problem of the poverty. So these are interlinked, and this way you have to connect yourself to it. Okay, just check all of you. Now this time really I'm getting the questions, good questions from you, and I think in the first day I started getting your questions. Okay, it's showing that yes, really now I started reading and started understanding these things. Please keep this way. I don't have any problem saying you and discussing these things, but my ultimate aim is you see the right things. There is some way to go and analyze it. Something the way we want, and the way we see that, maybe it's not true sometimes. So for this example, again I'm telling you, if you are my friend and we are sitting both together in some tea stall or somewhere else in the college library, then all your questions, all your grievances and all the claim, I will support you being the friend. But since we are discussing here, so I can just mold you in a such a way that what is the academic way and what is the way to write and way to think, that I'm insisting you to think and write in that way. Okay. Otherwise you can think any way, but we have to go in this way. Like one more question I received, but yeah, sir, if government pay back to World Bank, the amount of money comes to the category of capital expenditure or revenue expenditure, in which the amount interest also included. Simple logic, dear. Simple logic. First of all, you please don't confuse and don't consider both at the same time, receipts and expenditure. Consider both separately. Expenditure, you just see the expenditure, and receipts, you just see the receipts. Please go in this way, I promise you. And what you want to see, I will show you that things, but go in this way. Expenditure, just consider the expenditure. Receipt, just expenditure, consider receipts. Fine. You borrowed from the World Bank, say previous year. So total amount of borrowing, it was receipts for you in previous year, not the expenditure. This year you are paying back to the World Bank. So for this year, it's come under the expenditure for you. You are spending this money. So in this fiscal year, you are paying your loan amount. That is, there is a repayment of loan. So this year, when you started paying, or we are paying that, for this year it is the expenditure part. Now think, two component that I discussed with you. Okay, suppose I took loan from you 10,000 rupees, fine. You given me conditions, ki yes, you have to pay 2,000 rupees as interest. I promised you, okay, I will pay you. Every month I keeps paying you 2,000. So my liabilities is not going to decrease, fine. Because interest payment is just the amount I paid, but my liability is not decline, not decrease, and there is no asset and capital creations. Fine here. Now think, if this next month I paid you 4,000 rupees, total 4,000 rupees, and I asked you, sir, this 2,000 for my interest and 2,000 for my principal amount. So the 2,000 is going to be revenue expenditure, which is interest, and 2,000 is going to be the capital expenditure, which is my principal amount. Because if I paid 2,000 rupees as a principal amount, so now total liability is not 10,000 now, total liability is 8,000. So yes, if I pay you back principal amount, means loan amount, any part of full amount, the whole expenditure will come under the capital expenditure. But interest amount, since it's not going to decrease my liabilities, principal amount remains same, so interest amount payment comes under the revenue expenditure. And same way you just think about it. What is it? If government pay back to World Bank, the amount of money comes to the category of capital expenditure. See again, capital expenditure. What do you say? Money comes to the category of capital expenditure or revenue expenditure. Why? Acha, you're paying back. Fine. So it is the, just I clear? Your principal amount, what you are going to pay, the principal amount will come under the capital expenditure, but interest amount, principal amount, capital expenditure, interest amount, revenue expenditure. Therefore, clear head here? Is it clear or not? This is the second part, which can create some little bit problems, but I don't think so. It is going to dominate you. I trust on you. You are going to dominate all the things. So you are going to solve it. And last system is your external sector, where some few technicals are there. If you command it, I promise you, you will not get any problem in this subject. Otherwise, this other poverty, unemployment, is all are over. So this and the industry and agriculture, these are the very, now you can easily relate this, because already I started relating this, you will not get any problem. External sector to some extent, and after this I will go for the economic reforms. Okay, just think. Okay, true. Now let us go for the receipt side. Receipt side, again you think. So no. So government receipts, again government receipts, you can, now when you are talking about the receipts, just think about the receipts of the government, don't consider the expenditure. So in government receipts, you can again classify it into the capital, receipts, and second you can say revenue receipts. Yeah. Receipts may be capital receipts, receipts may be revenue receipts. And ask me, same concept here, one line category, one line basis. If you are receiving any money, or any receipts you are getting, that is government getting. So either all receipts may be capital receipts or may be revenue receipts. Okay. What is the criteria basis to classify assets and liabilities? So any money received by the government is related to assets and liabilities. It is known as the capital receipts. Suppose 10,000 crores received by the government. So when you are going to record in the receipt part, again you are going to get the two entries, capital receipts and revenue receipts. So just you see where I have to put, I mean you are just asking yourself where I have to put only one line classifications. If that receipts related to assets and liabilities, then you put it in the capital receipts. If that receipts is not related to assets and liabilities, you put in the revenue receipts. Clear? Okay, take your break and then we are going to continue this topic. Okay, thank you everyone.